Hello, this is Steven Seifert. Welcome to Steve Fest 2021. This is session number 14 on the third day. We're on this Saturday here. This is for upper intermediates, but really it's for anybody with a dulcimer that has a 1.5 fret. It says The Complete Guide to Playing with a 1.5 fret. That's a scary title for me because I can tell you completely everything I know about it, but I don't. How complete is it? I guess maybe you'll help me flesh it out. You've got this extra fret. Now what? It's great for backup chords, sprucing up your melodies in simple ways, and playing slightly more sophisticated chord melody arrangements. I'll show you everything I know. Most of most of what I know about a 1.5 fret. And it says DAD DGD tuning. The DGD, we're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but it's a good topic. So I don't. I do have a dulcimer with a 1.5 fret, but it's not here. So I want you to see what I've done. I drew little black lines over the frets on my chromatic dulcimer. I ended up. I had my first dulcimer I had for a year. It was just a kind of a regular dulcimer, and then the second one I got had a 1.5 and the corresponding 8.5 fret, and I, roughly 2.5 years maybe. And then I met David Schnaufer. No, I didn't meet him yet. Then I got a chromatic dulcimer. I had tried the 1.5, so I thought, well, let's try the chromatic. And that was 2 years. And then I met David Schnaufer, maybe my fourth, fifth year into playing, maybe. And he didn't have any extra frets except the 6.5, and the 13.5. So I did that for years. But secretly, I was playing chromatic dulcimer, when I wasn't at festivals and stuff like that. And then I met Don Petty, and Don Petty had an 8.5, but no 1.5. And I got really into Don Petty, and just I ended up tabbing out an entire recording of his, and one of his books is what I came up with. So every time I went to a festival, if a Don Petty was going to be there or a Don Petty lover, if I knew Don Petty people were going to be there, I would take my 1.5 dulcimer, and it sat in the room until I did the Don Petty jam. I started bringing it, and then there was a period where I played with a 1.5 for 3 years, maybe. So I've spent a lot of time off and on with it. When my mom wanted her first dulcimer, I just thought, you know what, she can handle this. And I got her one with a 1.5, and she still uses it to this day. So I've had a lot of experience. I will say that most of my time has been spent on a chromatic, and that's what you're looking at here. So let's talk about this thing. Um, First thing we really ought to talk about is, what do you lose when you start adding frets to the dulcimer? Well, the dulcimer, when you slide on a dulcimer, you hear a scale, the do, re, mi, fa, so, for the most part. When you start adding frets, you lose that. And that's a pretty cool thing we have. In some respects, the dulcimer is harder to play melodies on than guitar, mandolin, fiddle in some ways when it comes to playing the fancy stuff. It's easier to play a fancy melody on a mandolin than I think it is to play on a dulcimer. But because we can slide and we get little scale fragments, that makes up for it, and it gives us a unique sound. So that's why I will never be completely chromatic. And that's why most of the time I just play a regular dulcimer. It doesn't have a 1.5 fret on it. I love sliding and hearing those scales. I think it's where mwah. I love it. I also love how my brain is, when there's missing notes. Because I always joke the dulcimer has had the wrong notes removed. And you can just go from note to note and you get something pretty out of it. Um, I love teaching people with it. Someone who's never made music before or their first experiences were very negative, the mean piano teacher, that whole thing. There's magic in the regular dulcimer, but there's also magic in a chromatic. And there's also magic in the 1.5. Let's talk about some of the things the 1.5 is good for. Um, I do want to point out when you add the 1.5, it doesn't severely destroy, it doesn't seem to destroy those scalar slides. It adds just a little different thing to it. But because your first fret space and your fourth and fifth spaces don't have extra frets, that just seems to be enough. Where I never felt when I had the 1.5 fret that I was losing a whole lot on the slides. I think when you go fully chromatic, that's when, let's see, hear that? It just sounds like a sound effect. But what do you gain? One thing you gain is you make some people mad, and I always love that a little bit, you know. If somebody's to the point where they get mad about an extra fret, get the extra fret. They need you. They need you in their life. The biggest thing I liked about first getting a 1.5 fret was a C chord. A C chord. And I want to show you what that is. Hopefully you're taking notes here. Let me get to where I can show you what that looks like. Now, one thing you'll see on this screen is I forgot to put 8.5s and the halves for the 1. So look at this extra fret here. A lot of us call it a 1 plus. All right. So you got the 1 plus fret. Some people, of course, write 1 with a half symbol there. I think it's also good if you're going to get that fret, then get the same notes up high. So up here is going to be an 8.5, 8 plus. And I don't even know why those aren't there. I thought I fixed it, and I think there's multiple versions of this floating around. And also, let me write these notes in, sorry. F, C, F. But I think it's important to point out, if you're going to get it, that 1.5, go ahead and get the 8.5, I think. Because there's a real advantage to being consistent in both octaves like that. So let's look at the C chord. I loved this. This was my favorite thing when I first got it. We're going to play a 1, 1.5, 3. A 1, 1.5, 3. I'll make it a little bigger. If there's only one thing you get out of that 1.5 fret, I think this is a good one. So go ahead and play a D chord, like an 002. Fare thee well, old Joe Clark. Fare thee well, I. Now play a C chord. C. Fare thee well, old Joe Clark. I'm a going away. That's fun. So many times, you know, in dulcimer land, if we have a C, we have to go play, you know, whatever you're used to doing for a C, but there's really nothing down here to do. You always have to jump up here. So I love that 1, 1.5. And you can flip it too. And that one's actually pretty useful. Try a D on the bass, do a 200 chord starting on the bass, 200. And then play the flipped C chord, which is a 3, 1.5, 1. Fare thee well, old Joe Clark. Fare thee well, I say. That's pretty cool. That's the first thing I started doing with it. Let me show you the second thing I started doing with it. There's certain times when you're playing a tune in the key of D where you need a C that's below the open melody string. What is the open melody? It's a D. And normally, if your melody needs to go down to a C, you know, we have a C sharp on the middle string on a regular dulcimer, but that's not the same as a C. Often you have to go up here on the bass and hit this 6 on the bass. So everybody do an open melody. Now do a 6 on the bass. I play a lot of tunes where I use that. So listen to this. See how I have to go up here to grab the C on the bass? Well, now you have a C on the middle string with your 1.5. So here's the C I've been going to, but you've got this one right here. So now instead of having to jump up there, I've got... That's a very cool thing to have there. There's also some bluesy things you can do with that, but I figured out I could do I could do Shady Grove here. That brings me to the third thing. I love that you can play in minor keys, kind of. You get a D Dorian, and usually we have to capo, right? You capo at 1 to play certain things. Now there are some limitations to it, but listen, here's Rubin's Train. Normally I have to do that in E. Can you guys hear that all right? All right, so to sum that up so far, I think what I enjoyed immediately was being able to do the C major chord, certain melodies when I needed a C below the melody string, I could just jump over to the middle string at 1.5. But also, I got to do minor scales. Let me undo that. I got to do minor scales. So instead of capoing, so that opened up a lot. I will say this, there's a downside to the 1.5 where we start doing everything in D. We no longer have to capo at 1 to get minor. Well, it turns out it's kind of cool to capo at 1, especially for your audience. They really appreciate hearing things in different keys. So just because you have the 1.5 doesn't mean you should just play everything down there. Although, if it makes you happy, there's nothing wrong with that, I think. Now, there's some other chords, and I want you to write these down. And I'm going to go ahead and just sum them up real quick. The main chords you get when you add that 1.5 fret. So this one, which I just went over, 1, 1.5, 3. That's your C major chord. Man, I remember when I realized this, when you have the 1.5, you can play backup chords for somebody in the key of C. What? So when you get together with the auto harp players, they're in C often. Guitar players, they like to play in C. The 3 main chords you need in the key of C are C, F, and G. Well, here's your G if you want, down here, 0, 1, 3. And you guys know that one. What about an F? Here's the big F that's cool. 1.5, 1.5, 4. All right, so listen as I do key of C. Here's C. F chord. It's back to C. G. F. C. G. Back to C. Love that there's an F chord. Love it. But there's some other good ones. Let's look at those real quick. Usually A minor. And remember this class, we're up there. We're getting up there. You guys are getting to be better players. Some of you might not know these chords, but we have an A minor right there. But there's really nothing down around here. But now with your 1.5 fret, you have it. So you've got the 1, 1.5, 4. And all these can be flipped. Make sure you ask me a question if you got a question. You can type it, you can raise your hand, you can unmute your mic if you need to. Here's another one that's nice, a D minor. Especially when you're in the key of C, a D minor comes up, an O, O, 1.5. O, O, 1.5. That's a nice chord. Here's another one I like. Which one's the best first one here? Yes. So this is kind of, I'm going to go into some fancier ones, but what are the ones we've covered so far? C major, F major, A minor, D minor. That's 4 chords you didn't have before in that area. And in some ways you didn't have them anywhere. Like you didn't have an F anywhere, an F major. You didn't have a D minor anywhere. Here's the next level chords that I thought were really cool when I had my 1.5, and even on my chromatic I do this stuff. Here's a D chord, O, O2. A D7 chord, if we want to go from a D to a D7, you usually have to go up here. Or this, something like that. Well, you have what's needed to play a D7 chord by using the C on the middle. So label this one in your notes, D7. O, 1.5, 2. Ooh, that's nice. So I'm going to start with a D major. Then I go to a D7. And then I can go to a G chord. It's a real nice chord to have down there. And flipping it is nice too. Another one I really like is if you take a G chord, O1-3. What if you wanted a G7? And I can't do a whole class on what is a G7, but you just lower the melody string down so it uses that 1.5 fret. Woo! So all of a sudden, let me show you what I ended up with. I started to be able to do the blues for the first time down around here. I figured out how to do it a little bit at capo 4. And that's one thing you should know. When you capo at 4, you have a 6 and a 6.5. When you have a 1.5 fret and you're no capo, you have a 1.5 and a 2. And those are similar kind of things. You can pull off similar tricks. So one thing the 1.5 kind of not destroyed, but when we capo at 4, you get to use that 6 and 6.5 to play bluegrassy things, blues stuff. Well, now that people could do it with the 1.5 fret, they don't capo at 4 much anymore. Well, still capo at 4. It makes our music better. Keep your 1.5 though. But check this out. This is a D7 chord. 1, 1.5, 2. This is a G7 chord. Sorry, I might have said that wrong. The D7 is open, 1.5, 2. The G chord is open, 1, 1.5. And the A7 chord, which we have on a normal dulcimer, is 1, 1.5, 3. So you got your D7 up here. That's a terrible looking. My Apple Pen is on the frets. This one is a D7. This is a big deal, guys. You're going to smile in a minute. This is a G7. This is an A7. Those are the 3 chords you need to have a really bluesy sound. So let's do a little bit of blues. We're going to do D7. 1, 2, ready, go. This hat's ridiculous. G7 now. Go back to D7. Let's go to that A7 next. Then the G7. then the D7. Let's flip them. Just play them all flipped. Go to the D7 flipped. G7. Back to D7. Here's your G7. D7. So while you're doing this, your friend could be playing a solo. A7. G7. Back to D7. A 1, 2, ready, go. Let me do one more. I'm using the 1.5 to play these melodies. Check your mic. Somebody's unmuted there.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And, you know, being able to do that for the first time down here, especially, was really fun for me. Terry, you got a question? I'm going to go ahead and.
We're not hearing you. Steve, you're muted.
That's funny. I meant to mute Terry and I muted me. That's funny. So now let me try again. You guys are being too quiet. Has anybody got a question? Please just mic one up.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Was the 1, 1.5, and 4 an F or an A minor?
1, 1.5, 4 was an A minor. Let's see. 1, 1.5, 4 was an A minor.
And an F?
Is 1.5, 1.5, 4. 1.5, 1.5, 4.
And how about an A7?
1, 2, 3. And that one, you know, you've got that normally. 1, 2, 3. This is fun. Ask me any other ones. I'm happy to say them again.
I thought you said the A7 was 1, 1.5, 3.
That's a C. A C major chord is 1, 1.5, 3. I might have, who knows what I said because I get confused. But an A7 is 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. A C major is 1, 1.5, 3. 1, 1.5, 3. All right. So I guess it's fair to say you get a handful of new chords. Let me give you one more that I think's fun. Look at that A7 chord. If you flip these chords, I'm going to do this in green so you can see the flip. No. I'll just keep it the same. Look down at the A7. Nah, I do. I want to flip it. I'm going to flip it. Watch. If you flip the A7, you get a 3 on the bass, a 1.5 on the middle, and a 1 on the melody. Play that sucker. Now check this out. If you take that 1 on the melody string and raise it a half step, look at this. I'm going to go ahead and mark that other one right here. So normally an A7 is a 3, 2, 1 if we're flipping it. But you can raise that melody string to a 1.5. Now go to the D7 up at the top of the page. So this 3, 2, 1.5, it's an A dominant 7, sharp 5. Just more jazzy stuff. Okay, so you get, let's sum up everything so far. My first thing was I loved that I had a C major, an A minor, an F major, a D minor. And then I loved that I was able to get melody notes. You know, used to have to go to the C up on the bass. Now I can do it on the middle. Then I discovered some bluesy chords. I discovered that I could play in a minorish kind of key. And when you capo, you're going to get cool, weird things too. So I just spent time telling you about like some of the cool stuff you get without a capo. When you capo on, you get some interesting possibilities there too. Let's talk for just a second about finding somebody to add a fret. Recently, this is just crazy to me. I'm going to tell you some dulcimer secrets. So Terry McCafferty, he uses CNC machines to do some of the work on here. And it's kind of like a robot, you know. It's the same way people used to do things with primitive bone and wood tools and stone, and then they eventually moved up to like metal tools. Well, Terry's just he's doing what he knows and what he loves, and he's making dulcimers with accurate machinery that he's very good with. This other builder kept making fun of Terry, and he was like, he should be a real builder. He kept saying all this stuff to me. So this was at a festival. So this lady comes up. She had just got this $3,500 dulcimer. I forget who the builder was. It was beautiful. Had all this inlay. She was so proud of it. She said, "Who can I get to do a 1.5 on this?" And I thought, ugh. I said, "Well, you really ought to go to the guy who built it. That's what I would recommend." She said, "I want it today." And all these people said they could do it for me. And I said, "Well, go to Gary Sager. He'll put it in for you. I think he would be a pretty good guy to do it." So she comes back later and says, "Well, Gary was real busy, so I had this other guy." Now, the other guy was the one who was making fun of Terry. She showed me the dulcimer, and the 1.5 fret was crooked, visibly quite crooked. And I just couldn't believe it. And I thought, do I tell her that her new $3,500 dulcimer was just, this guy just kind of butchered it with this fret? Y'all, it's not an uncommon story. You want to get that extra fret added by somebody who knows what they're doing, and none of us know everything. So you really need to find somebody you can trust, and you might just be wrong every once in a while. But Gary Sager does a pretty good job, I think. So if you need somebody, that's one person to do it. I would say when somebody's wondering, like I know there's a couple people here today that they don't ever use their 1.5 fret. You know, the first step is learning how to ignore it. That's my opinion. You just got a new fret. Can you just do all your old stuff for a while? And you know, because one of the things you'll find out, like when you do a 1, 2, 4 chord on a regular dulcimer, your index finger can actually be about here on that second space. But when you get that 1.5 fret, you've got to move it further to the right. And especially if you have long nails, that makes it awkward. So there's going to be some adjustment. And I just recommend, can you learn to just play around it for a while? And I imagine most of you figured that out. Let's talk about grace notes. Not Grace Jones, but grace notes. Let me pull up another sheet. Let's look at the one that says, and I'm not sure what it's labeled. Um, not that one. Hang on a second. I might not have. Maybe this one's too simple. Let me make sure. We're definitely going to get into some crazy stuff in a second. Let's just get rid of the handouts for a second. All right. I want you to try this. There's some pretty standard ways that you can use this 1.5 fret to do some pretty cool things. So check this out. Let's see. Uh-oh. Watch out. Mute your mic there, Nancy. So bottom cabbage. Just play this with me. A 2, 2, 2, 2. That's enough. Okay, do that again. Ready, go. 2, 2, 2, 2. One of the first things you can do with this 1.5 fret is whenever you've got a 2, you can go to the left of it, to that 1.5, strum that, and quickly slide into the 2. It sounds like this. It's one strum. And it's a way to put a little attitude on your 2, a little bluesiness. So on Bottom Cabbage, I'm going to just do it on the very first beat. 1, 2, 3. Go to the 3s now. Now when we go to the 2, do it again. Just go down to a simple 1. Do it again on the 2. And then the 3. Do it to the 2 again. And then the 1. Now if you do that all the time, it'll get a little old. But listen to me use it barely. Like here's Wildwood Flower. I added it there. I did it up there at that 8.5. You can definitely overdo it, but if you practice sticking it in different places every time you play and don't make too big a deal about it, it's a pretty good move. It'll fit on every song. Listen to Old Joe Clark. Hear that? So wherever you have a 2 planned, start on the 1.5 and just very quickly slide into that 2. Scoop. And vocal, I think with singers, they call that scoops. Here's another cool trick you can do. Anytime you have a 1 in the key of D, this is a particularly cool bluesy thing to do. You know a 1 is coming up. Instead of starting on the 1, start on the 1.5 and slide to the left. Listen to this. It's a nice bluesy thing. So listen to Bottom Cabbage. I'm going to do a plain 2 this time. Here it comes on the 1. So sometimes it fits better than others, but I look for places where there's a 1 and I precede it with a quick 1.5. Listen to this. That kind of lick. You'll see some of these in the tab we're looking at. These are quick little things. Strum and slide or hammer on or pull off. But this next thing I think is kind of fun. Watch this. I'm going to do Bottom Cabbage. And I want you to try this. I'm swinging it. On the in strums, I'll do a quick 1.5. And then on the out strums, I'll do a 2. Every out will be a 2. Every in will potentially be a 1.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Do it with me. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Listen to this. That kind of thing I think is pretty cool. I call that deedle dee a little bit. Now you can also get that up at 6.5 when 6. Whenever you do that, you're going to sound less like old time and more like the Sonny and Cher show when they did the Dixieland special or something. I don't know. It's kind of a 70s. I don't know what it is. But if you use it just a little bit, it comes in handy, I think, quite a bit. I could keep going on things you could do there, but I want to look at something else. Joseph said, I added my 1.5 on a McSpadden. He recommended waiting for the 8.5. Said he'd removed more 8.5s than added. I know, I've heard that. I just want the consistency, you guys. Whatever I've got in one octave, I want in the other. Because I like to go up high and pretend it's a little miniature dulcimer with all the same notes I'm used to, and then I can play everything I know up there. But he's got a point. Some people used to also, oh, where'd my little black lines go? I got to put my black lines back. One moment, please. Come on now. Well, that's a different class. That's a different class. I got to do this. I don't want to screw you guys up. One moment. That makes it kind of obvious what's... No, that's your 1.5. Okay, here's your 3.5 and your 4.5. There we go. I know that's messy, but people used to do this. They would just add a 1.5 fret on the middle string. You know, so you just had it just enough for that. Well, you know, that's kind of cool. I get it. If you're happy with your playing level, then you know, get that benefit and without messing things up. I get that, but I'd get both octaves. Let's look at some tab. This let's look at this bluegrass riffs with 1+ fret. Yeah, I like this. Bluegrass riffs. This kind of lick was made popular by those two fellas, Clarence White, Tony Rice. Let's play that. Listen to this. 3 on the middle. Starts on the second beat. Let me count you in, and you're gonna go like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. You can do a full strum too. Well, how would that fit in? This lick is 2 measures long. So you just find a 2-measure section out of one of your songs and try replacing whatever is there with this. Listen to Old Joe Clark. Or no, let's do a Bottom Cabbage. 1. Go to the 3s. Here's the 4th measure. We got 2 more measures, then we're going to switch. Go to the 3s. Now I want you to do this lick right here. I messed it up. Let's do it again. Here come the 1s. Do the 2, 1, and then right here. That didn't work out. Oh, it starts on beat 2. Starts on beat 2. Don't forget that. So we're going to go. Bow them cabbage down. That's it. Do the bow them cabbage. Oh. That's it. Let's do that. Bow them cabbage down. Bow them cabbage down. Now look at this next measure. People call this a G run because on a guitar it kind of originated out of the G chord, but we're doing it over a D chord. I've got all the licks on this page set so they'll sound good over a D chord. This is measure 3. Under that G run label should be an O. You just can't see it, but that's an O under there. So let's do measures 3 and 4. 1, 2, ready, go. 2, 3, again, O. I'm going to do it with a strum this time. Let's do bow them cabbage down. You've heard that kind of stuff your whole life, right? Do the bow them cabbage down again. 2, 1. And as soon as we get to the O, you're into measure 3 there, that G run. Bow them right here. Notice I'm swinging it. And you can full strum it. Let's look at this one that says white rice. That's funny. White rice lick number 2. This one's cool. That's very bluegrassy. Notice that's a 6.5 followed by a 6. One and 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Do it again. Let's try this on Bow Them Cabbage. Bow them cabbage. And jump to right here. Let's do Old Joe Clark. Fare thee well, Old Joe Clark. I'm a gone away. One more. Let's look at this measure 7 and 8 and 9. This puts some of it together a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. One, 2, 3, 4, 1. One way you can think of these licks is you're going to think of a recipe. You know, it's your standard whatever, pineapple upside down cake, right? And you put a cherry on top. Well, there's these cherries we've got downtown at this restaurant. They're like $100 a jar, and they're these really dark, yummy cherries. I don't know. It's something. And so at a high-end restaurant, they'll put it in a cocktail. Well, that's kind of like these little licks. It's like, hey, you know that cherry you usually put on your pineapple upside down cake? Try one of these cherries instead. So all these licks on this page I've given you here, try to find places to put those into songs you know. Not the first time through the song, maybe the second, third time through, just to give you a little variety. And there's a bunch of licks here. Let's do these, put them in context a little bit. Let's go to measure 14. Measure 14. This is Old Joe Clark. for measures 14 and 15, but then measure 16 does one of these licks instead of whatever old Joe Clark would normally do in those two measures. Measure 14. 1, 2, ready, go. Here comes a rest. 1. Let's do that again. Old Joe Clark. Fade. Here's the next line. Remember, there's a rest. Boom. That's a fun one. So work through all that. There should be enough on this paper to give you an idea how to put fancy cherries into your pineapple upside down cake. Let's look. So, and this kind of music means you're not just using, a lot of times in old time music, you're either using the 2 or the 1.5. But with this kind of stuff, you end up using them both together in some fancy ways. Let's look at this blues stuff. And check this out. Let me check my tuning. I'm going to play this with a swing. Out, in, out, in, out. And do it with me. Notice there's 1s and 1.5s. First 4 measures. 1, 2, ready, go. This is the Sesame Street theme a little bit. Measure 4 coming up. Now watch. For measure 5, you can hold down all 3s, however you want. Then you got to add a 4 to the middle. Then do a 4 plus, which you probably don't have. So I do a little bend on that middle string 4, just a little to hint at it. So listen to this. I usually bar with my ring finger and use my index. That's measures 5 and 6. And then measures 7 and 8 are like the beginning. Let's look at measures 9, 10, 11, and 12. You get this. And then measure 10, you got to go back down to the 3s. Put the little wiggle bend on the middle. Back to the normal 4 and then open. Let's play this whole thing from measure 1. Make sure you're looking at the paper because I can't fit it all up here. 1, 2, ready, go. I'm going to call it measure numbers. 2, 3, 4. Here comes measure 5. Go to all 3s right here. A little bit of a wiggle. Back to open. Up, I shouldn't have done that. Then 4s. Here come the 3s again. Back to open. I think that's pretty cool. Let's look at this next part here. Measure 13. Let's do 13 and 14. Actually, let's do 13 over and over. Just measure 13 over and over. 1, 2, ready, go. Hey, yeah, baby. Come on now. That's a neat kind of thing you can do. And what's interesting with the blues sometimes is while the person next to you is playing a D major chord, you're going to be playing certain notes from a D kind of minor feel. Listen to this. Let's see. That's just a D major chord. And over that D major chord, I'm going to play this measure 13 over and over. I love that kind of stuff. So check out these pages. There's all kinds of fun little bluesy things that use 1.5 frets and lots of pages. Plenty to look at there. Any questions so far before we switch tunes?
Sure, Steve.
Yep.
Since I bar with 3 fingers, doing that 4+ seems like a challenge. I guess because I have my ring finger on the 3, I need to lift that up, or
I would just leave it out. I would just do like, you could just do 3s. And then when you go back to the open, you could go to the fancier thing. And every time you have to go to 3s, you just do 3s only. You know, I mean, that's what we do on dulcimer. When you don't have a note, you do the simpler thing that kind of works anyway. This is supposed to be the complete guide, so let's see what questions we got. Mary says, about bending a pair of notes, you physically bend on each note, right? You can't just bend and strum twice. I'm not sure what you mean, but I want you to know there's all kinds of bends, Mary. There's all that kind of, boy, it's out of tune now. But you said bending a pair of notes. Oh, maybe, I don't know if you mean, I'm not sure what you mean, but we better not do too much bending in this class. We'll break a string. Do you have another question about 1.5 stuff? I'm going to go ahead and pull up something else. If you got something, holler.
Stephen?
Yeah.
On measure, when you get down to measure 24,
Yeah.
and the timing on that, and then you have those little check marks. Could you explain that?
Measure 24.
Right.
Those are ties, which I want you to ignore because that's a
Okay.
good thing for you to learn about. But if you're talking about those little curves, just ignore them right now. But what they do is glue 2 notes together to become one. But the first step to reading this is to ignore them and just play this. Like that.
Okay.
But put on your to-do list that you want to learn about tied notes. They are tricky, and it would take me 20 minutes to work with everybody. Definitely worth the time. We're just out of time.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. I'm going to look at this. What do we got here? Let's look at this wildwood flower. Filled with too many bluegrass riffs. Now, I want you to know why I did this. Because I want you to lay this next to your normal wildwood flower. So you're not necessarily going to play through this entire page front to, or 2 pages front to back for beginning to end. But I want you to use it as a kind of a source reference where every once in a while you'll grab something out of here and do it instead of your plain version. Just a couple measures, but let's go ahead and sight read this a little. 1, and we're going to swing it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and ready, go. Hold it. Second line. Let's stop. Just do that much. That's all we're going to probably do. Ready, go. Do measure 4 only. Measure 4. Ready, go. Let's add that much to it. Go back to the beginning and go ahead and do a strum, but notice I'm hitting more strings than what's on the paper. And notice that I'm moving back and forth in an uneven fashion. That's a swing. 1. Ready, start. Measure 2. Those are half notes. Don't miss them. Listen to that fast. So I'll do a normal one. I mean, that's pretty cool. So see if you can grab sections out of that. Just 2 measures. Stick it into your regular one. And you're going to have to be like a little bit of a scientist there. Feel around. There's plenty of good licks in that one. Let me see. I want to look at John Henry real quick. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. This is a little hard, but I want to play it for the video so you can hear it. What this is DAD. And I'm going to capo at 1. I'm going to play it kind of slow for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Wait a minute. It's not capo 1. Woo.
Hey,
1,
Steve,
2,
what are you playing?
3,
Can you just tell us again what you're
ready.
playing?
John Henry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Second line. Notice how I'm silencing the strings with my left hand. I'm looking over my shoulder. I'm sorry that not these playing a chromatic. I wish I had a 1.5 here at the house. It's pandemic times, ladies and gentlemen. Hard times. But I'm going to wrap the class up here, but I'm not going to end it. If you guys have specific questions, I'd like to take a few of those. I sold. What weight string is good for bending? If you're going to bend a lot, you probably want lighter strings than what I got on here. So sometimes when I'm experimenting with bending, I tune down from D to C. So I'll tune to C, G, C, or I might tune to B, F sharp, B. Thomasina, you were wanting to get some ideas maybe about the 1.5. Did you have any thoughts? Well, I see your.
Yeah, can you just play the Wildwood Flower all the way through, just up to speed, so I really know what it's supposed to sound like?
All right. Almost. Let me do measure 11. That wasn't exactly it, but that's the vibe,
You
I
have
really gotta-
confirmed to me how brilliant you really are. I mean, this is brilliant. You are
Well, that's-
brilliant.
Thank you. That's my aunt Thomasina. She's always been a big fan of me. My mom and Thomasina, my mom's right below you actually. Nancy Seifert's in here. Guys, I know I was playing a chromatic, but I wasn't using the extra notes on the chromatic. I was just using what you have, and this thing's wonderful. Look at this left-hand stuff I'm doing. It's just like whatever you're doing, you after you strum it, you just relax the hand to create silence. I love doing that kind of stuff.
You were doing that on the open as well. How do you do that?
You just touch them like that. That's a whole other class. That's pretty cool. Trapper says, "How do you play the grace notes in John Henry?" There's I'll show you the one that most people wonder about. This is a lot,
Especially
for an
the open one going to the 1.
hour. Where is that?
13.
Measure
13.
13. Oh yeah. So the little ones, first ignore them. Ignore those little ones at first and just make sure you can play the big dark ones. 1 0 1. That's very simple. 1 0 to 1 and then the O of the next measure. But if you want to throw these in, you begin by strumming that little O and just hammer into the 1 like that. And you do it on the beat. You pick on the beat. And then the other one, I like to either slide or pull off. Here's a slide or pull off. So, I love that 1.5, you guys. Let me encourage you with something. When you start raising the complexity of things, I don't know that it stops. If you're the kind of person that wants to get fancier, there's just never going to be an end. So I think it's important to have a core that you protect and enjoy. So for me, it is, can I take a regular dulcimer and play with good timing and be in tune and play expressively and tell a story where I'm not just doing the same thing over and over, but with the simplest of songs, even at slow tempos. And then that's my core that I protect, and I only let things in my core if I've practiced them to the point that they're safe. But the core is where my joy is, you know. So when you see me doing all this fancy stuff, that's, you know, who knows, you may just want to just stick to a core. But all of us have different levels of interest in this stuff. All these handouts, there's a good bit in here. I think if you study that wildwood flower, that's going to give you just one tiny idea that you could put into Soldier's Joy or Southwind or something. What I do when I'm around traditionalists is I'll do one of these fancy things, and if everybody looks at me with a frown, I don't do anymore. It's like being in a Southern truck stop in 1982 with long hair. I don't know, it's a similar kind of feeling. Except the truck drivers don't beat you up afterwards.
Okay, Steve, question.
Yeah.
Like with John Henry, since I'm not that familiar with the tune, how do you know where the melody notes are when you put the whole chord down?
First you have to date John Henry. You have to listen to 30 different videos on YouTube and get on, you know, Apple Music or Spotify, and you have to you got to look up the history and read the lyrics, and you got to sing along with all that stuff pitifully. I sing along with, and even when I'm not getting all the notes, and so somebody says, "What have you been doing, Nancy?" And you go, "I'm on to John Henry. I just can't get enough John Henry, you know." And then after that, 2 or 3 weeks of that, or maybe 2 days of that, or 3 hours of that, you get out Steve's arrangement, and you'll start to get a better feel for that. You know, something this fancy shouldn't be your first John Henry. That sounds like a colloquialism, like John Hancock, but this is your John Henry.
Okay.
You know, one thing we could do as teachers is, you know, I could use darker ink for the melodies and softer for that would be kind of a neat thing to do. Any other questions about your 1.5? Ooh, how about this one? Where can we find music with 1.5 frets in it? Thomasina, do you have any 1.5 music?
Nope, because I really don't have a 1.5 dulcimer yet until
Okay.
I get my new one, and I'm very excited about this. I really am.
There's somebody that lives not too far from you. He's a friend of mine, Rob Brereton. I can send you his number because he could hook you up. Does he use a 1.5? I don't know. I forget.
I don't think so. I don't think
Okay,
he
he
has
doesn't.
one.
I'll tell you, Shelley Stevens might have a 1.5 thing. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, she does.
Aaron O'Rourke has got a whole bunch of books. I said to him once, you should make some books with 1.5, you know, your stuff. Anyway, he made like 40 of them. Go to Aaron O'Rourke's page. There's got to be others out there. There's Tall Glazner using it. I know Larry Conger's got things that are normal, but then he's got the fancier stuff.
Judy
He
uses
Klinkhammer
a-
has a book.
Okay.
Judy Klinkhammer has 101.5. Actually,
Larry was
dulcimer
talking.
101.5.
Larry was talking about his 0.5 fret, and I remember thinking, I have a negative 0.5 fret, Larry. It's to the left of the nut. It's a magical fret. The more you fret, the better you feel. Half frets for every meal. I need to go take a little break, you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me, and you'll have a video for this early next week. See you soon. Bye-bye.